You're alive? You didn't tell me you were going live? Ankin Ma'at. You can see that Anika surprised me a little bit here. We should actually do a Kemetic Ascension bloopers reel, right? Because clearly it is, I was a little surprised there. Let me just simply say to you that we are so pleased to have you here with us. Let me say that we are so honored that you chose to spend your Sunday here with us. And I want to actually start out by simply saying that I am so enamored, I am so blessed, I am divinely inspired by the work of those individuals that you may have heard us call the Wenwet. Now, first, before I even welcome you, before I say anything else, I have to speak to you about the Wenwet. There was a time in the development of the Shrine of Ma'at that our elder, Baba Heru, had actually said to us that it was time for us to come forth. It was time for us to do the work on a higher level. And that was when we actually received our Ankhs. And since the time we received our Ankhs, we were doing the work of priests and continuing to study and to learn what that role truly was. But I'm going to say to you that it was a magnificent thing to be able to envision a time that we would actually not simply be doing it alone. And that time of not simply doing it alone seemed really distant at that time. Now, please don't think that I am asking for your sympathy, because so many practitioners are truly doing it on their own. So many practitioners are really doing all of their work on their lonesome, feeling unusual, feeling strange sometimes with their family and friends, not necessarily understanding that they are practitioners of ancient African spirituality. And clearly I had my mate, I was lucky enough to have my mate, Anika, with me, and without anything else, without all of the things I can say about her that are wonderful, let me just say, having someone along with you on the journey, a journey that is unusual for many of us, is amazing. You can imagine how amazing that is. So it's not like I was alone, it's not like she was alone, we were together. But still, to do the level of the work that we expected was something that we could barely conceive of. We thought that there'd be a time that we would have initiates, people who were part of the close family of the Shrine of Ma'at, and we even said there will be a time that there'll be other priests that will do the work at a high level with us. So it began that we actually did something bold. We had an interview in the New York Daily News, which is probably one of the most, if not the most, it's one of the most read papers in the country. It's definitely, I believe, the most read paper in New York, a city of 8 million people. And so we went in the Daily News and we said that we were calling forth initiates, calling forth people who would be part of the family of the Shrine of Ma'at, and we were asking for there to be 42 of them because of the significance of the number 42 within the concept of Ma'at. I don't need to tell you what that is. So fast forward, we got to the point where we had our 42, and we still said we are not yet complete, because we always envisioned that there would be other people with us doing the work on a very high level, the priest. It wasn't until last December that that part of the journey of the growth of the Shrine of Ma'at would come into fruition, when we actually began priesthood training. And so we took these 9 individuals with us along this journey. Their journey, their initiatory journey into the priesthood began on that day in December. And the rest of their training, their priest in practice, and also training to do it at an even higher level, was going to be 3 years. And so we're approaching completing the first year, I should say to you. And in that time, we have seen these 9 individuals do amazing things. And so for the last month, they have been coming to you with Kemetic Ascension. And you have noticed that. You've noticed that Anika and I have not been present at Kemetic Ascension. And that's simply because we have been doing the work elsewhere. And you should understand that in the time that it was just us, doing the work elsewhere and leaving Kemetic Ascension was a stressful thing. We were like, how are we going to do it? To have these 9 individuals, to be there, to do the work of the Shrine of Ma'at, to do the work of the Kemetic tradition has been so exciting. And so I want to thank them. You saw them. They came forward to you with 2 wonderful sessions of Kemetic Ascension. And I'm going to say to you that it was even more challenging for them because we're doing it in the middle of the pandemic. So as you can imagine, we are doing virtually everything virtually. And so they had to even put it together virtually. So I need to really salute them. I need to say that I am honored that they are part of my closest family. I am honored that they are now individuals that are along a different leg of the journey with us. It means that the Shrine of Ma'at has truly matured. And we know that there'll be much more growth in our future. But to have both full members of the family of Ma'at and then priests doing the work of the Shrine of Ma'at, what else could we ask for? So who am I talking about? Let me call their names. Because so many of them are probably in the chat room, and you probably aren't aware of the fact that they are doing this work at this level. And you may not even have known before this, when you hear us say when wet, maybe you checked into a session in the middle of the session, and you did not know who I was talking about. So who are the when wet? Let me say that I am talking about Ka Aani Mbes, who is known as Abu Ka very often. You might have known that he was previously speaking to you as Rodman, but he has a Kemetic name now. I'm talking about the priestess Seshat, who you might have simply heard of as Saeed Singletary. I'm talking to you about Abu Vernon, who is also a minister of the African village in New York. I'm talking to you about Abu Wasaret, who you might have simply heard, and you know, let me say to you that she's quiet, but she does so much. And I think that she has really also come out of some of the quietude that she likes to stay in. And quietude is a word. Look at Anika rolling her eyes when I said quietude. Because she is really doing a magnificent job also putting forth art. So you've heard her voice, and you might not have heard her voice as much. She was known simply as Leslie before. And so now you're seeing Abu Wasaret. I'm also talking to you about Abu Zephaniah. And he is, yes, and he is Abu Jehuti or Abu Tehuti. You are seeing him come forward and do some amazing things. And I'm going to tell you that he's one of those dudes that is traveling all over the country, and he still makes time to continue working with the shrine and ministering. We're not using the word ministering anymore, but I have to use it first so you know what I'm going to say. Hemnettering to our community. And so I'm honored that he's with us. I'm talking about that wonderful priestess who, when she enters the room, she brings balance with her. And I'm talking about Abu Noni, who has done some amazing work as well. And most of her work, some of you might not have even seen some of her work, because I'd say that she has really done some amazing things even with the initiates. Those people who are now newly full members of the Shrine of Ma'at. We continue to hear from them how wonderful having access to her has been. And so for those of you who see her in Kemetic Ascension, at least before the pandemic, you might have seen her and another priest I'm about to mention really heading up our Hessi. And so she's one of the Hessi masters. So who's the other Abu that I just mentioned? Abu Kepra. and Abu Kepra is the person perhaps that does, I think that he does a larger share of the Hessi work. You've seen him. He was someone who was initiated in the Shrine of Ptah. We are honored to have him here amongst us. And he has also been ministering, hemnettering to our community. And then finally, I believe I've mentioned everyone, except, yeah, it was one more. There's two more. Okay, wait. Abu Jamar. Yes. Abu Jamar, who you may know has been hemnettering or ministering to the community, the online community that has really exploded past online, called the Lighthouse Online. So much that you see people in the media just simply, they're just sitting there at a press conference. This happened to a UFC fighter. And he says, one of my teachers is Jamar Milton. Jamar didn't even know that was going to come. But when you do that kind of work at a level he does online, you don't always know exactly how far your words have gone. And so he is also one of the win-win. And then finally, and I left him finally intentionally and then almost left him out. That would have been bad. Why did I leave him finally to last intentionally? Because the final priest that I'm going to mention, Abu Ames, was perhaps one of the first people to push the Shrine of Ma'at to even have initiates. When Anika and I first took our ankhs, Baba Heru introduced us to Abu Ames, and he had been meeting with us for years before we even had initiates. He and another member of the initiates, Jehuti Mes, had been pushing us to have initiation. So the two of them almost single-handedly kept saying, when are you going to do this? Why are you waiting? What do we have to do? Do we need more? And so Abu Ames should be recognized as one of the Hemsenu, and also the final priest that I'll mention. As you know, he is someone who has been studying for a really long time as well. And you're going to see him really hemnettering to the community on Instagram. That's one of his major modalities to speak to people. And so all of these individuals are amazing. And I know that they're amazing. I said much about the other ones, and I didn't even mention how Abu Ka and Abu Sashad have been pulling forward Jehuti Talks, Tuesday Talks, and have been speaking to people who are important in our community regularly. So what am I trying to say? I'm on an extended riff because I need to spend more time thanking them. It has been amazing being on this journey with them. It has been amazing having individuals who actually can do the work along with you. No longer are we at the time when Anika and I are talking about a shrine, but it's just the two of us. First we had initiates, and we have quite a few of them now. And then we also had people who are the priest of the Shrine of Ma'at. And so I want to say dua to them once again. Dua, dua, dua for them. Picking up the slack that you might have felt with us not being here live at Kemetic Ascension for the last month. And so I'm hoping that you have given them honor and you're talking to them about the work that they're doing. They are there for you. The chief role of a priest is to be a servant, the term hemnetter really means divine servant more than anything else. And so I hope that you are continuing to get the kind of solace from them that they can provide. So thank you once again to them. Dua, dua, dua. So let me go ahead and say, welcome to Kemetic Ascension. Welcome to Kemetic Ascension for September 13th, 2020. We are excited that you're here with us. And I know that during the pandemic, we have been entirely online. And being entirely online can mean several things. It can be challenging, but it can also be amazing. It means that we spend a bit more time talking about where people are. So please let us know where you are. Let us know exactly where in the world the voice, the ancient voice of Kemet is reaching. And as you do that, I'd love for you also to let us know how long you have tuned into Kemetic Ascension, how long you've been part of Kemetic Ascension. And I must say that some of you, while you haven't even been initiated, have been with us from the beginning. And we see you as part of the family of the Shrine of Ma'at. So many of you have been with us from the very beginning, and we recognize that you are part of the family of the Shrine of Ma'at. In fact, we are considering what we will call you, because some of you have been with us really for 4 years. And we consider you a large part of our family as well. So, as we talk to you about where we are in this portion of the year, I want to say to you that we are preparing for the solstice. I'm sorry, for the equinox. We're preparing for the equinox that will come forward in just a few days. The fall equinox. And so as we do that, we're going to hopefully bring you some things that you'll be able to use in order to really assist you in moving forward in one of those, in one of the important times that we recognize the movements of Ra. So we're preparing for the solstice. And perhaps there is no better way to prepare for the solstice and prepare for any day than with the opening of the way. So in a moment we'll do the opening of the way. Before we do that, can I simply ask Anika if we have people who are telling us where they are from and how long they've been part of Kemetic Ascension?
Well, in terms of where they're from, we have Nebraska.
Wow.
Paris.
Have we said Nebraska before?
Probably, yeah, Lincoln, Nebraska, I know we've had.
Yeah? Wow, I don't remember.
It's the brother who signed up for the Kemetic language courses.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And we have Canada.
Canada.
We have, you know who that is.
Is that the Usa Ma'at Ra? No, Jehuti Ma'at Ra.
Columbus, Ohio, that's Derek Grant. We have Adenike from St. Croix. And we have a sister from St. Martin on YouTube. We have Gatineau, Canada, another location in Canada. Federal Way, Washington. Chicago.
Washington the state or Washington? I'm assuming Federal Way, you mean Washington the state.
State? Oh, sorry, the state.
Well, but it says Federal Way, so it could be Washington, D.C., right?
Let us know which one.
Let us know where that is, because I'm not sure if I know Federal Way. So please let us know where you, give us a better beat on where you are in the world.
Okay, Colorado, Aurora, Colorado.
Aurora, Colorado, wonderful.
I'm so tempted to say Mike Jones, that's his name. You probably get that a lot. Let's see, Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida.
Brazil.
Wow.
Northeast Pindorama.
Pindorama?
Pindorama.
Where is that?
That's in Brazil.
Is that where? Oh, that's in Brazil.
Yes.
Oh, and who is that? Is that
Serdene Verlucci. I'm sorry if I messed up your name.
Because I know we have an initiate that travels back and forth. I believe between between Massachusetts and Brazil. But there's another wonderful person in Brazil. Wonderful.
We have Mississippi. We have Springfield, Ohio. We have Houston, Texas. It was Washington State, right outside of Seattle.
Ah, Washington State. Interesting.
That's where my cousin used to live.
Other side of the country.
Tacoma, Washington. We have Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Something going on in Washington, huh?
Yeah.
Something going on in Washington. We got some folks in Washington.
Let's see. Nashville.
Nashville, Tennessee?
Yes. Morristown, New Jersey.
Morristown, New Jersey. Wonderful. Not as far away as some of the other places, but definitely we are excited to see you. Hopefully the Morristown person is someone we'll see in person as well.
Yeah, let's see who else. Try to check YouTube as well. St. Louis.
Wow.
We have Phoenix.
Wonderful.
With another Florida resident. We have Oakland, California.
We
have Pariaso, Indiana. Hopefully
Wonderful.
I said that correctly. We have more Nashville in the house. Nashville's getting big.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so, this is worldwide. We're so happy to have all of you here. One person said, am I the only one in the desert? No, I'm sure there's more people out
The
there.
desert where? In Arizona and...
KTS Thomas.
Where in the desert are you?
KTS, I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Where are you in the desert? Let us know.
We'd love to
there's some
hear.
other people out there with you.
Yes, and there are...
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. Wow. Okay, that gets the award for the furthest distance today, I believe. Let me say welcome to you. Let me say Anken Ma'at to you. We hope that you are continuing to put your life in divine balance. It is wonderful for you to be here for Kemetic Ascension. And were there people who actually are new?
Yeah, there's a few new people.
A few new folks?
Yeah, they kind of scrolled past. There's Roanoke, Virginia, I see here.
Roanoke, Virginia,
yeah,
wonderful.
Sarabi Queen is asking if I've done Queen of Four Sacred Woman. I haven't, but I was an initiate under Queen of Four and Baba Heru from Kemetics 101.
Mm-hmm.
So we know a lot of sacred women who are
tons of
part
sacred
of
women.
our shrine as well.
And let me go ahead and say that we are so pleased that some of you are coming to us for the first time.
William is out there. There's more people out in Arizona, so you are not alone.
Let us say that we're honored that you are here with us. Some of you are here for the first time, and that some of you have continued to come back to Kemetic Ascension for a long time. Some of you for years. We're honored that you're here with us, and we know that together we will be able to galvanize that divine energy that our ancestors expected us to put forward so that people of African descent can do those things that we have been expected to do. So I want to say dua to you as well.
Just wanted to shout out to Gaston Bryant, who is also in Arizona.
Wonderful.
For those who are looking for people out in the desert.
Yes, and Gaston is a regular. We've spoken to him several times as well.
And we have a newbie from Atlanta, Love
Wonderful.
Yangu. And Ronald from Buffalo.
Ronald from Buffalo. What's up, Ronald? Good to see you. Say peace to your queen
and
to
our
us
friend
as
from
well.
Brazil is the first time. This is her first time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let me say that you just mentioned Atlanta. I will actually be in Atlanta next Friday and Saturday for the conference that is being put forward by Tariq Nasheed. It's a wonderful conference, and I'm hoping that you will join in. I'm hoping that you will come to the conference so that I can meet so many of you that are in the Atlanta area, and so hopefully we'll be able to see each other, and that will allow us to continue to build a strong relationship within the Shrine of Ma'at for those individuals who I'm looking for the time and the address, who are actually parts of the Shrine of Ma'at family. So the conference is called the Foundational Black American Conference, and the conference it starts at 3 p.m. on Saturday, September 19th. So hopefully you will come out and we'll be able to see you.
Foundational Black American.
The Foundational Black American. And for more info, go to fbac2020.com. fbac2020.com for Foundational Black American Conference. So I'm looking forward to seeing many of you. So with that, can I ask us to stand together to do that ceremony that marks our shrine? This ritual that hopefully you will be doing on your own, will continue to do on your own, to remind yourself of just how powerful, just how imbued with divine energy you are. And that ritual that we are describing is called the opening of the way. So, please stand with me in the position of adoration as we do the opening of the way. What do I mean when I say position of adoration? Stand with your left foot striding a bit forward to your right foot. Stand with your shoulders square And then what you will do is you will expose your palms in front of you. Your left hand will be a bit further forward, and you can also have it a bit higher up than your right hand, which is going to be a bit further back, and perhaps even lower depending on how you're doing. Now, please don't do this. Some people do this. Okay? Try to have your wrist, just if they're bent at all, they're just slightly bent. Okay? And as you do that, you are standing in a position that we have seen on temple walls. You're standing on a position that we have seen in tombs and in temples for thousands of years. So if our Kemetic ancestors demonstrated themselves giving praise and power and honor in this manner for literally the 3 millennia that that nation was powerful, you should know that this position is important. And today we call it the position of adoration. It means that you're going to give divine energy with your left hand and receive divine energy with your right hand, creating a powerful divine circuit of energy. So, let us begin. You're going to take a deep breath. Please try to breathe here. Breathe into your diaphragm. Don't breathe here like we have been taught to breathe by recrimination and fear and rushing and just dealing with a society that is always always running and never on pause. Breathe from here in your diaphragm, and you're going to take a deep breath and then chant the divine sacred word of everlasting life, Ankh. Let us begin.
Anatrak in bed het.
Anatrak in bed het.
Nook in bed het.
Nook in bed het. Anatrak happy.
Anatrak happy.
Nook happy.
Nook happy.
Twau enter. Turn to the right.
Anatrak serket.
Anatrak serket.
Nook serket.
Nook serket. Anatrak kebsenuf.
Anatrak kebsenuf.
Nook kebsenuf.
Nook kebsenuf.
Twau enter. Turn to the right once more.
Anatrak ast.
Anatrak ast.
Nook ast.
Nook ast. Anatrak amset.
Anatrak amset.
Nook amset.
Nook amset.
Twau enter.
Anatrak neat.
Anatrak neat.
Nook neat.
Nook neat. Anatrak dwamutef.
Anatrak dwamutef.
Nook dwamutef.
Nook dwamutef.
Twau enter.
Anatrak newt.
Anatrak newt.
Nook newt.
Nook newt. Anatrak geb.
Anatrak geb.
Nook geb.
Nook geb.
Twau enter. Anatrak shoe.
Anatrak shoe.
Shoe. Shoe. Shoe. Shoe. Nook shoe.
Anatrak tef newt.
Anatrak tef newt. Tef newt. Tef newt. Tef newt. Tef newt. Nook tef newt. Twau enter. Anatrak pouts in Heru. Nook pouts in Heru. Anatrak imbu in Heru. Nook imbu in Heru. Twau enter. Dwa, dwa. I'm hoping that you are also doing the opening of the way. Because you must remember that the opening of the way is that ceremony that reminds you exactly what you are made of. Don't you need a reminder like I need a reminder? Don't you need a reminder that you are an infinite being? That you are so powerful that you cannot be destroyed by death. When you receive this reminder, you will be able to do anything that you choose. Remind yourself of the stuff you are made of. Remind yourself of your infinite power and infinite presence. In fact, you have probably heard me say, if you have tuned into Kemetic Ascension before, that with all of the challenges that beset us, with all of the things that trouble us, with all of the things that seem to be insurmountable, in fact, there is only one problem in the world. And that is the problem of disempowerment. Imagine if you went to a gymnasium, and when you went in, you saw the biggest dude you had ever seen. Muscles rippling, gigantic. And you saw him lifting a 5-pound weight and struggling. Just breathing, just sweating. You would say, what is wrong with you? Do you not see yourself? You're not the skinny dude in the corner who is just starting. You are an incredible physical specimen. And you're struggling with a 5-pound weight. And he might actually look at you and say, what, 5 pounds is light? You would say, try the 50-pound weight. Try the 100-pound weight. Well, in fact, you are the muscular physical specimen. You are the spiritual dynamo who is struggling with a 5-pound weight. What's the 5-pound weight? The 5-pound weight is struggling to pay your rent. The 5-pound weight is struggling about what people say about you. The 5-pound weight is thinking that you don't have enough time to do the things that you need to do. The 5-pound weight is the challenges that you've had in your family relationships. The challenges you've had in relationships you have with significant others. Those are the 5-pound weights, and you far exceed those challenges. Do the opening of the way. It reminds you what you were made of. And so I'm so pleased that you're with us, and I'm so pleased that you are committing. Notice I'm telling you what you've committed, right? And that you are committing to do the opening of the way as well. Now, some of you are probably saying, Brother Jabari, I have never done that before. I've never seen it before. Some of you are saying, I've seen it, but, you know, I gotta tell the truth, I've been faking the funk, I'm not doing it. Listen, you are a practitioner of Ma'at. That's probably why you've tuned in here. Don't beat yourself up on the fact that you don't know how to do it yet. Just get about that business and get it right. Balance the scales and do the opening of the way. It should be done before anything important. And I will indubitably say to you that your day is important. Do it at the beginning of your day at the very least, because it will remind you that all of those things that you will face over the course of that day are things that you can actually have dominion over. So, I'm hoping that you will do so. And dua so much to the Hemet and Tur, Anika, for coming up and doing it with me. You know that it has been months now that we've been doing Kemetic Ascension virtually alone. So that means that I'm used to having more people up here doing it with me. In fact, I would probably not even do it myself. I would ask someone that is here with us, that's gathered with us, to lead us. But the pandemic has done some interesting things, right? It's allowed us to focus on some things that we might not have focused on. So please continue that ritual. Incorporate it into your spiritual toolbox, because you are going to need to open that toolbox and to reach for it on a regular basis. With that, let me say that we usually at this point invoke the divine power of the Netedru in song, in chanting, in harmony. And this is what we call using Hessi. Using Hessi. Hessi could be considered the forerunner of affirmations in harmony. In fact, You know that people of African descent in particular have been known to use harmony in their spiritual form more than any others. In fact, if you go to a black church that is not far from its white counterpart, its Tamhu counterpart, you will actually note that that church probably sounds different. And that's because Africans have always recognized that harmony is a form of spiritual technique. And so I want you to understand that gospel didn't bring that to us. We brought that to the gospel. And in bringing it to the gospel, we created one of the world's most revered music forms, and also a manner in which we are able to show the rest of the world how to actually worship. But you should know that bringing that to gospel, bringing that to the Christian tradition, meant that we were doing it before. In fact, we were doing it long before. Doing sacred dance, doing sacred chanting, doing sacred song. And so Hessi is one of the earliest recorded manners that we use divine harmony to recognize the power of the divine that is in the world within us. It allows you to, in many ways, pull that divine energy that is within you outward, so that it can be in harmony, so it can be in congruence with the divine energy around you. When you vibrate at the frequency of the divineness around you, you become the one. And so today what I'd like to do is I want to do one that we could easily call, Anika, an oldie but goodie, right? Why am I saying that? I'm doing this Hessi that some you might know as Kumra. And it's a Hessi that was done in our shrine of origin. Anika and I, before we the shrine of Ma'at, were adherents to the shrine of Ptah, brought forward by that elder that brought the Kemetic tradition forward in the West earlier than anyone else. The elder known as Baba Heru Ankra Samad Se Ptah. And I want to, did you want to say something about him?
Yes, I did.
Okay, please.
I do.
Please.
So, listening to this Hessi and this chant was amazing. It's something that actually puts you into trance. It makes you calm down. It makes you think and ponder on the importance of what you're doing. And it's been so long since we heard it. It was amazing to hear it again. It was both with Baba Heru and Queen Afua. So this is actually their chant. We are borrowing it to make sure that you know that this is something that was dedicated primarily through the Shrine of Ptah.
Right.
But the reason why it's also even more important to do it today, and this is something that we've kind of kept quiet for a very long time. We really wanted Baba Heru to have space for healing and space for regeneration and rebalancing. Physical rebalancing. Yes. Yeah. Only his close family and the priesthood, the Wenwet, were aware that about a month ago, our elder Baba Heru had a heart attack. And he's fine, he's doing well, he's recuperating, he's healing. But we wanted to give him the space to heal so he wasn't overwhelmed by people reaching out and checking in on him. Mm-hmm. I think at this point he now feels a little bit more comfortable with people knowing what's going on. That's right. He is much stronger. You know, even his physician has said that he's one of the strongest people they've ever seen at his age to be able to bounce back and recuperate the way he did. So I'm sure he will say more about it when he is ready. But we figured we would tell the Shrine of Ma'at family so that you know that it's even more important for us to do this Hessi in his honor. Yes. And to give him all of the myrrh, all of the sanab, all of the health and love that we possibly can give him to make sure that he continues to be healthy, he continues to regenerate, and continues to do the work that he does on this plane. Yes, very important. And I'm actually surprised that Anika came forward to tell you that, because I have been chomping at the bit to tell you that sooner. One of the reasons why I have been is because I know that sometimes things leak. And then when they leak, the people who feel close to you feel sometimes that you kept something from them that they would have wanted to know. And so as soon as Baba had returned
home, I wanted to try to announce it, and Nika has been holding me by the bridle for some time, and so I did want to announce it. We've only announced it within the Wenwet and within the full initiates of the Shrine of Ma'at. But please, this is a time for you to recognize if you are here, and that if you have received even an inkling of divine countenance from these sessions, if you are an initiated member of the Shrine of Ma'at, if you are an initiated member in virtually any other shrine or any other temple or any other spiritual institution in the world, you should be saying dua to Baba Heru Ankh-Ra Samad Sepata. Because of the fact that for over 50 years, he has held aloft the light that has allowed us to see the room, see the world more clearly. Now, that is a challenging thing to hold aloft that light. Yeah. If we were struggling to do it with just the two of us, imagine what he was doing. Everybody must have thought he was crazy. I know that as a police officer, they actually sent him for a psychological evaluation. That's a true story. When he came into this tradition, they said, that man must be insane. He was sent for psychological evaluation, and then the evaluator, who was a Tamhu, listened to him and said, you're not crazy, you're just an artist. And I want you to understand that that was the only term that Tamhu could use. What he was really saying is this: what does an artist do? An artist creates. So he was saying, I see that you are struggling to create something.
Energy.
And the beautiful artwork is not just the Sa that he has created. Look at Anika. Anika is the walking billboard for Baba Sa. But he was recognizing that he was creating something bigger and broader. And in many ways, that was the new iteration of the Kemetic tradition.
What I'd like to say is that the main reason I did keep it under wraps is that my Mut energy and my Sekhmet energy is really strong with people that I care for. And I really wanted to protect him and give him the space to heal. So often we think that we're doing a lot of benefit by immediately reaching out and calling and not thinking about the fact that you're not the only one calling. There's probably others calling, which means he doesn't get enough sleep. He doesn't get enough time to heal.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure he had enough time to do what he needs to do, to heal, to sleep, to relax, which he doesn't get to do very often because he's always working for us. And being that servant that the Hem means in Hem Never.
Yes. And we actually have taken a few verbal beatings by people who would have wanted us to tell them sooner, who were not happy that we didn't share it. And we'll just take them. We'll just take them because we were doing what we thought was right. And in the opposite position, it's possible they would have done the same thing. And so just know that if this is the first time you're hearing this and you feel rankled, instead of being rankled at us, instead of being rankled because you didn't know, isn't this the time to give myrrh, to give divine love to our elder? I would argue that that is a better place to put your emotional, spiritual, psychological energy. And so please give him some myrrh. Does that necessarily mean you just got to call him and keep him on the phone for an hour saying, I love you, I love you, I love you? Everyone's going to do that. Perhaps that means, and I know that this might sound very basic to some, and it is basic. Perhaps that means that you purchase something from the studio. Perhaps that means you introduce someone else to the legacy of Baba Heru Ankh-Ra Samad Sepata. Perhaps that means you write him a note so that it doesn't take the time for him to be on the phone or on the internet or to greet people in the place that he's healing. Those are wonderful things that you can do. And I know that also, in addition to that, I know our initiates, particularly I believe it was Rakasa Shen, the last initiatory class, also sent him some fruit. Another way to show some love, particularly to someone who's vegan, right? And so there are many ways that you can show him and give him honor. Please choose the one that will need less response from him so that he can continue to heal. I know that we saw him just last week, and he did look a little tired. He's still healing.
Well, he's catching up on work as well.
Yeah.
He's the only one who can do what he does.
That's right.
So the time that he has right now is focused on trying to catch up on all the work
That's
that
right.
he missed out on. So
That's right. That's
just
right.
Please keep that in mind.
So keep that in mind.
Out.
Yes, please keep it in mind. Okay.
All right.
So let us share with you the oldie but goodie Hessi. And I'm going to say to you that we heard this when we were active in the Shrine of Ptah, but I had never mastered it. And I constantly asked older priests to teach it to me, and they would just say, you know it already. They'd be like, no, I wouldn't ask you to teach it to me if I knew it already. But anyway, this Hessi is wonderful. This Hessi is old, and I want you to take a listen to it. It's called the Kumra Hessi, and it's the kind of Hessi that allows one to, as Anika said, go into trance. So we're going to teach it to you, and hopefully you will master it and continue to chant it. So, this is how it goes. Kumra, Kumra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. So that's how it goes, okay? So it's Kumra, Kumra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. And then the second one is a little bit different. It's Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. It's a wonderful, wonderful Hessi. And you can do it along with others, and sometimes you would just hear the person in the background going, Kumra, 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 while you are chanting the rest of the Hessi. And I would suggest that one of the things that you can do is you can also alternate in that. So that when you do the mantra, when you do the Hessi, you are able to access all of the power of the Hessi. So here we go. Let's do it. Kumra, Kumra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Heru 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 Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum 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 Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra, Kum Ra 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 Ra, Kum Heru Ra, Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. Kumra Kumra Kum Heru Ra. Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. Kumra Ru Ra Ru Ra Ru Ra Ra. Kum Heru Ra Kum Heru Ra. Kumra Kumra Kum Heru Ra. Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. Kum Ra Ra Ra. Kum Heru Ra. Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. So it is a beautiful, beautiful Hessi, and you can see how you can go on your own tangents with it. Maybe you're going to just chant Heru, 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 come Heru, Heru. Or maybe you're going to just do ra ra ra, 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 ra ra ra. Kum Heru 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 Ra. Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. Kum Heru Ra. Kum Heru Ra. Kum Heru Heru Ra Ra. Kum Heru Ra. Kum Heru Ra. Kum Heru Ra Ra. So you can go on and on and on. Imagine sitting around the fire chanting that, with the strings of a Kemetic harp and the tone of the Kemetic drum. Please, we're going to continue to do that one because we want you to master it as we are beginning to master it. It is an oldie but goodie, and in some ways I really like doing it because it is a testimony to our shrine of origin. Anika and I actually were initiated into the Shrine of Ptah in 1998, and we stayed there for many years, studying with Baba Heru, being part of that wonderful community until in 2010 we actually created the Shrine of Ma'at with the blessings of our elder, Baba Heru, and at that time he became our shrine elder. And so it is so powerful to chant that. I have heard Baba chant it many, many, many times. And so please chant along with us.
So we have a few questions online.
Yes.
One person's asking, do they need an Ankh to do the Hessi?
Good question. Let me say to you that the Ankh is divine life. It is a reminder. It is a way that we actually stay committed to our charge to continue to serve. And so you're probably referring to the carrying Ankh. And the individuals that have these Ankhs generally are part of the priesthood. And so you'll see that there are several of us that actually have carrying Ankhs. Now, let me say to you that if you are invigorated by its imagery, as I am, you could do two things. You could go to the Shrine of Ptah and get a beautiful meditation Ankh. I wish I had brought mine downstairs today, because I carried my meditation Ankh during the time that I was still in training to become a full priest. And you can also get something that reminds you of it. Or you can even make your own Ankh. So you can do those things so that you are connected to the tradition of our ancient African ancestors. So what I'm saying is if the imagery and carrying one is important to you, is powerful to you, then do so. You can also decide that you want a carrying Ankh, and that would just simply mean that you need to be on the path of priesthood. Maybe that's what's calling you. Sometimes people are on that path and they don't even have the vocabulary yet to describe what they are doing. And so perhaps that is what is calling you. Let me say on another level that Hessi is something that comes from your heart. Hessi is something that allows you to galvanize your divine energy. You do not need to hold something in order to do Hessi. In fact, I'm going to say to you that one of the most powerful ways to do Hessi is simply to do it when you need it. So you could do Hessi actually before you are doing something. Do Hessi while you're in the shower, on the train, on the bus, driving to work. Do Hessi, because it will remind you who you are. It will allow you to pull that divine energy that is inside outward. So Is that a complete enough answer, Anika, or do you think that?
That's fine.
Yes. Other questions, comments, or anything?
Yes. So people are asking how they can send messages to us. So I just put our website address. You can send messages through the website. It's www.shrineofmaat.org. So please feel free to do that. We have a question from Je suis d'origine Afrique.
Right.
And I hope this is not entering a debate space. This is our spiritual space, so keep that in mind. But he wants to know why we don't speak of intuitive women in Africa.
Why we don't speak of intuitive women?
Yeah, that's part of the Kemetic tradition, to talk more about intuitive spaces of women. Maybe that you haven't been on our...
Let me say it this way. Let me answer it and take it in the most positive way. I'm not sure if you have actually been part of Kemetic Ascension or seen the things that we've done, but I want you to recognize that this is just one session, and we literally have at this point dozens and dozens and dozens of them. We have over 100 Kemetic Ascension sessions. We have hundreds of hours of discussion and teaching and praising, and so all of that means that if you just tune in for any hour, that doesn't mean you're going to get a sense of the full breadth of the things that we've been doing. And so I'd rather you phrase it in the positive and say, do you talk? Make a question rather than say, why don't you talk? And so that's, I think, what Anika is noticing too. It sounds like it's a little bit more challenging, but I want you to understand that we talk about divine femininity regularly. It's perhaps something that we talk about more than almost anything else. And so, particularly because, remember, we are the Shrine of Ma'at. Ma'at is personified by a beautiful woman who is the very order of the universe. And so if she is the order of the universe, certainly we go beyond what you would label intuition. We talk about being in divine balance, which some people would call intuition. But if you are in divine balance, you are resonating with the very power and essence of the universe. And that is why those women that were able to do it and are still able to do it, and even those men that are able to do it, are able to do what some people believe is operated in intuition. It's because they're in harmony with the very origin, the very essence of the universe. So please understand that that is how we would do that. And I'm hoping that you meant the question in that manner. We should engage in dialogue so you are more familiar with what we're doing. Is there more that folks are saying at this point, Anika? Or?
I think that's
okay.
most questions.
Good. I'd like to go into what we would call a word from the Sebayit at this section, at this point in our session. And this is the part of our gathering that we would talk about a particular topic so that you would be able to bring the highest of wisdom from a Kemetic perspective into your modern life. And so that is what we are seeking to do at this moment. And I'm hoping that you will get some use, some wisdom from it. So today I'd like to talk a bit about Asar. And as I speak about Asar, I want you to recognize that I am talking about that archetype of the Divine Father. And hopefully you are able to recognize and utilize this divine energy in your life. And so today, let us talk about embracing Asar, the Divine Father. On the screen, you are seeing some of the iterations of Asar. You can notice that he is usually depicted as a man with a white crown that seems to reference his origin in the interior of Africa. That white crown could be considered the Hedjet, the crown of Upper Cam. But I want you to also recognize that his crown is usually a bit stylized. He has two large feather plumes on the side. And I think that the reason why he has those plumes on the side is because he is that one who is doubly of Ma'at. He is that one that is more firmly connected to divine balance, to the order of the universe, to sacred morality and sacred a sacred being than most. And so that is the reason why I think he has what we generally call the Atef crown, which is the white crown with the two feathers on the side. You're also seeing him carry usually the crook and the flail, the Heka and Nekeka. The Heka and Nekeka, that is what they are called. And those are symbols of regalness and royalty. What does that mean? It means very basically that he is a king. In fact, he is mythologized as the first king of Kemet. But in addition to that, he is also one that should remind you that you are in dominion, that you are in control, that you are the powerful one, which is an alternate rendition and translation of his name. You can notice that his garment is very form-fitting, and that's possibly because in the myth he is the first Sa, the first mummy. On the right you are seeing him stand with the two ladies. One of them has a rectangle and a bowl on top. She is the lady of the house in Bedhet. And then you are seeing, who is his sister, and you're seeing his other sister, who is his sister wife, who actually has the throne on her head. She is the great divine lady Ast. And so these two ladies are ladies that assist Asar in returning to his divine state after his murder at the hands of his brother. In fact, as you see him here in this structure, within this structure, this also is a way for us to remember that Asar is one who could not be destroyed by death. And this image is images of him is actually in the Hall of Ma'ati, in the space where he is the ruler of the afterworld. And so I'm truly hoping that all of us get to sit on this divine throne at some point or another. So let's talk a little bit about Asar. Come on. Of course, this would be the time that my clicker goes dead. But please take a look at this image and notice the different ways that you can see Asar. If you look at the image on the bottom, you're going to notice that this is actually Asar as the lord, the owner, the most powerful being in the land after death. And so the person that is being greeted, is being introduced to him by his son Heru, is the person who has made their transition. This is the person who has been the victor over death. And in fact, they become Asar. They become Asar. And so this is an important way for us to understand this as well. On the left, you are seeing an image of Asar being honored after his death by his wife on the right, Ast, and his son on the left, Heru. And you might notice how, I didn't bring down my water, did I? Is that mine or is that yours?
That's mine. But you can have some.
You might notice that in this image, Dwa, have a little bit of a bug in my throat. You might notice, thank you, Dwa. You might notice that as you are looking at this image of the three of them together, you are seeing that he is depicted as much smaller than the two of them. I think this is beautiful because in some ways what you are seeing is a statue of a statue. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing Asar as the statue in the middle, and these two important members of his family are paying homage to him. So, I want us to understand that in order to utilize Asar, you must understand Asar. I have been told on occasion that sometimes I go into teaching mode instead into spirit mode. And I look at those people that say that and say, in order to use an energy, you must understand it. At least if you're going to use it effectively, you must understand it. And so let's begin with an analysis of Asar and then talk about how you can utilize Asar in your life. First, let me say that I want us to, it is really time for new computers, Anika. I want us to recognize that Asar is a very important character in Kemetic spirituality. In fact, you could make a very secure argument that he is the, if not one of the most important spiritual figures in ancient Kemet. That's who you're seeing. One of the most important figures in ancient Kemet. One of the most important images of the divine in ancient Kemet. And you may know that Kemet actually described the divine energy in many ways. Our Kemetic ancestors believed that the divine force was in all things, that in fact the divine force was all things. And so they sought not to describe something that is all. Because if you describe something that is all, then how are you able to understand its discrete movements, the way it behaves in certain situations? So they spent much more time describing just that, how the divine energy works and moves and guides us in particular situations. And that is why you see so many different names of the divine. Well, Asar perhaps is the one that everyone would know. Regardless of where they were in ancient Kemet, regardless of what time they existed in, regardless of whether they were priests of this temple or that temple, they all would have seen Asar, and also by extension his wife and his son, as important images. I would actually argue, and I've heard me make this argument before, that perhaps Ast is more important in moving the tradition around the world. But I think that most would agree that Asar is perhaps one of the most important deities in the entire tradition. Who is he? He is the first child of Nut and Geb. The first child of those deities that are personified as the heavens and the earth. The heavens being feminine in the Kemetic tradition, and the earth being masculine in the Kemetic tradition. Nut and Geb. He is the the brother husband of, I typed this incorrectly. I'm looking at it now. I mixed a bunch of stuff together. He is the brother husband of Ast. He is the brother husband of Ast. What does that mean? It actually means that he is, that he has the same parents, and he also is the husband of Ast. Sometimes people might say, well, isn't this incest? First of all, I want you to understand that we're talking about divine entities, not literal beings. But I also want you to understand that the greater commentary that is being made here is that Ast and Asar are imbued with equal amounts of divine energy. That is the greater comment. That's why they're described as sister and brother. Because one is not more powerful or not more important than the other. Asar is also mythologized as the first great ruler of Kemet. And for all of those people who would reign over this great beloved nation, this great lady known as Kemet, he was also a symbol of responsible leadership. He is the father of Heru. And if Heru is considered the son of the Neteru, then Asar is Neteru. They are both the Nter. They are both the divine. But understand that Heru is that one that in some ways is emblematic of everyone, and Asar would be our father. And so that's one way to look at it. Understand that he is perhaps the first deity of record who was destroyed by evil, and in his great victory over evil, he realizes, or he is not able to be destroyed. He is actually resurrected after his brutal murder by his brother Set. And as we say resurrected, more on that word in a bit, understand that his resurrection is what allows us all to have resurrection. And that is why one of his titles, we'll talk about his titles in a minute, is Kenti Amentiu. Kenti Amentiu. What does Kenti Amentiu mean? I'm going to talk about that in a moment, but I want you to type down if you know what Kenti Amentiu means first. He is not an external deity. Not entirely an external deity, but he is also a symbol of the rectified soul. What does that mean? In many of the younger traditions on the planet today, like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, we see that we are asking for the divine entity that is outside of us to give us something. We are praying for the mercy of Jesus. We are praying for the solace of Mary. We're praying for something outside of us to give us something. In fact, the only way that we are truly able to get into the Hall of Ma'ati or into heaven in those traditions is for us to be able to ask for the mercy of that deity, because we are fallible. We are not perfect. We are sinners, as they would say, or as I heard said so many times when I was part of the Christian church. Well, in this instance, Asar is not entirely outside of you. Asar is also you. And that is the reason why in the earlier slide I told you that the person who is judged Makeru, or truer voice, the person who is deemed worthy of heaven after death, then becomes Asar. In fact, their name is written as the name and Asar. And so he is not entirely an external deity, but also all of our rectified souls. So, I'd love for you to talk to me more about the term that I used. What was the term that I used for Asar? What is the name that you should know Asar as? Well, there are actually many, many names. Tell me what the name that I gave you is. Tell me what the meaning is. In addition, let me say that Asar's green face, his face is often either depicted with the color green or the color black. His green face connects him to vegetation and rebirth, and also the flooding of the great river known as the Hapi. Here are the names of Asar. Before I even put it on the screen, do we have some answers, Anika? What is the meaning of the name of Asar that I just gave? Kenti Amentiu. Does anyone know? No answers? Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Gotta continue to do your research so that you're able to do a higher level of work. Kenti Amentiu means that Asar is the foremost of the Westerners. The foremost of the Westerners. That is really, really powerful, if you ask me. Being the foremost of the Westerners means that but let me start here. In the Kemetic ideology, the West is where people went after they completed their work in the physical world. After they died, they would go to the West. In fact, the term for the West was Amenta. Amenta. The land of Amen. And if you actually look at it that way, the title Kenti Amentiu, meaning the foremost of the Westerners, means one of two things. That he is the most important of the Westerners. How could it be the most important of all the people that go into heaven? Well, it actually means, in many ways, that he, through his murder and resurrection and his wonderful deeds, his wonderful work, his divine soul, he is the one that allows all of us access to the West. This is a concept that we see in the later traditions. We see this in the concept of Jesus, who died for our sins that we may have eternal life. Well, the ancient Kemetic people would not actually say that he died for anyone's sins, or that they wouldn't have described it that way, but they would have certainly said that in his perfection and beautifulness, he is the one that allows us to also have victory over death. Another title, Un-Nefer, which means the opener of good things. So that in many ways you should see him as the entity, the power that allows us to enjoy wonderful things in this world. Un-Nefer. He is also known as the King of the Living, the Lord of the Afterlife, he who is permanently benign and youthful. Think of that name. He who is permanently benign and youthful. Lord of silence, Lord of love, Lord of the perfect black. And let me just say a word about Lord of the perfect black. In some ways you can imagine that as a chthonic deity. That means that he's a deity connected to the birth and the rebirth of the earth itself in its stages of death and rebirth, such as you would actually see plants do. He is actually also depicted as black because that black sacred black fertile soil that came from the Hapi on its annual inundation is what allows the earth to renew itself and allows us to continue to have sustenance. And so when we call him the Lord of the Perfect Black, he is being connected to the soil. But don't be confused by the fact that this also should be connected to the way that we view ourselves, because we know that in the Western world, black has been truly, truly repudiated. It has been that color that is seen as evil in some ways. And so in ancient Kemet, they would have seen black very differently. They would have seen it as a symbol of potential, ability, fertility. And so please recognize that this is important, particularly as we see ourselves, people of African descent. So much has been said negative about us. You cannot go to a drugstore in, let me say this another way. I don't think you can go to a cosmetics counter in any country of the world and not find bleaching cream. Because that concept of white supremacy has meant that people are often uncomfortable with the darkness of our skin. And so to be called the Lord of the Perfect Black should be redeeming. We should recognize that our ancient African ancestors certainly did not view the world the way that we have been given it in the modern world by white supremacists. And finally, another name is, actually, I love this name. It's another unusual name to me, and that's why I like it so much. Baneb Jedet. Sometimes just described as Baneb Jed, but you'll also see it translated as Baneb Jedet. And that means the Lord of the soul of the Jed. Neb meaning Lord, Ba being an aspect of the soul, and Jed being the symbol of eternity and stability. So he is the person that personifies the eternal stability of the universe in the symbol known as the Jed. Very beautiful. Baneb Jedet. Baneb Jedet. And you should know these are just a few of the names. You can see on the slide that there are over 158 names for Asar. Now, where is it that we see Asar coming forth first? I think that's an important topic for us to discuss. We see the oldest description of the star, Asar, and I'm talking about in written terminology. We see the earliest description of him in the Merkut text that have been misnomered the pyramid text from the 5th dynasty of ancient Kemet. And that's very important. It's very, very important. The center of his worship, the place that focused entirely on Asar in ancient Kemet, is the city that the Greeks called Abydos. But the Kemetic people didn't use that term. That is a Greek phrase. We actually use the term Abju. Say Abju with me at home, please. Abju. Abju was the burial place of the first dynasty rulers. And you should know that Narmer and Aha were buried there. This is important. Abju means something like hill or symbol of the reliquary. What does that mean? It actually means that it might be the place, mythologically, where the head of Asar is supposed to be buried. You know that Asar was cut into several different pieces in the great myth. So the head was supposed to be buried there by his great queen Ast. So Abju symbolically is that place. He becomes the symbol for the rectified soul in everyone. And that actually continues all the way into Kemetic history until the Christians and the Romans seek to suppress that concept. So you should understand that literally for what we can quantify as probably over 3,000 years, Asar was the symbol of one who had actually been good enough, moral enough, balanced enough to enter into the afterlife. And that does not disappear until the Christian and Roman era, when they seek to subvert that concept for themselves, which is very interesting to me, that they would actually take it themselves. Understand that I believe that they knew, at least many of the powerful and learned Christian fathers knew this, because they are definitely familiar with Osiris in that period. And I say Osiris because that is the Greek name that was given to Asar. And they would have also recognized the importance and ancientness of the Kemetic tradition. In fact, this is probably more than one, but we know that in his writing, one of the early Christian fathers calls Jesus the Lord of the good Scarabaeus. And the Scarabaeus is the Greek term for the Keper, a symbol of transformation, a symbol of rebirth. And so clearly they were connecting the concept of Asar to that of Jesus, a newer deity. He continues to be worshipped on the temple known as Philae or Pilak in Upper Kemet, all the way in Kemetic Nubia, until the Emperor Theodosian I puts out his decree saying that those temples will be closed. You should also know that the Greeks merge Asar with Zeus. At least it seems that they do. And if you look at Zeus, and then a spirit of Ptah, known as Apis, which was personified by a bull in one part of Kemet, and Asar, you see that what they do is they merge these to create another deity that they worshipped in the area known as Serapis. So this is one of the ways that they begin to take over these concepts. And they remain part of the tradition of these Western traditions for a very long period of time. Let's talk about some of the other hidden images of Asar in Christianity. So you're looking at one of those images here. What is this called? Some of you may be more familiar with the Greek name. This item is sometimes called an obelisk. An obelisk. And an obelisk is a monument that you'll see all over the world, but I want you to recognize that it is supposed to be symbolic of the henenum of Asar, the penis of Asar. And so when Asar is murdered by his brother Set recognizes that he will not be destroyed by death, and that if his wife is able to find his body, his wife Ast, that the Greeks called Isis, that you'll also hear as Oset, you should know that Set argues that if Ast has access to his body, she can resurrect him. And if she's able to resurrect him, he will be back on the throne. So he takes the body and cuts it into many pieces. Usually in the story, it is 14 pieces. And then Ast has to go to all of these different places that the body parts have been strewn around the land. Collect them, do sacred ceremony over them, and bury them. But it is understood that she puts these pieces back together so that he can briefly be amongst the living. So she is able to take his seed and then give birth to their heir. Well, this would have been challenging because in one of the myths it's described that one of his important portions was missing. She could not retrieve his henenen, the penis, the phallus of Asar. And so she recreates it. That is the symbol of Asar called the Tekken, that the Greeks called the obelisk. And you're seeing one right here. Anyone know where this particular one is? I'd love to know if you know where this particular one is. Because it is not just any Tekken, it's probably the one that many of you have seen with your own eyes. This one actually is in Central Park here in New York City. It is the only authentic Tekken in in the United States.
We have a question.
Yes.
So why do they have one in Paris, Washington, and Germany?
There are Tekkenu that have been taken from Kemet and placed all around the world. There was a point where leaders in those cities and in those nations believed that in order for them to be powerful, they needed to have an ancient Tekken. And so you should know that after France got theirs, that was when the United States and New York argued that if Paris is an amazing city, so is New York, and that they wanted one as well. So these symbols of resurrection, these symbols of divine power were taken all over the world. There are now many, many, many around the world and very few left in Kemet. In fact, the city that has the most is Rome, the place that is the seat of the Christian tradition. And so understand that these rulers believe that in order for them to be powerful, they would need to have access to the henenen of Asar, to the large, erect penis of an African deity. Imagine that for a second. Because a penis, a henenen, actually is philosophically a organ of generation. And so to take one, they believed that they were creating a great civilization. And yes, the one in Paris is the partner to the one that's here in New York. That's a really good question. Thank you. Dua.
Are they carved from a solid piece of stone?
Yes. They are carved from usually one solid piece of granite. And we still don't know exactly how the Kemetic people carved them from one piece of stone. There are some good theories, but we are not positive. I know that we often think about the Merkut or the pyramid as being an amazing architectural and engineering feat, but understand that the Tekken is also amazing. It can weigh as much as about 300 tons. Now think that your average car or SUV usually weighs between a ton and 2 tons, 1 and 2 tons. So this block of stone weighs around 300 tons. Imagine what that means. And in addition to that, your Kemetic ancestors were absolutely showing off after carving it out of stone in a way that we still do not understand, after finalizing and shaping it and carving glyphs into it, after coating the very top of the Tekken with gold or something that is gold, silver, and copper, and then moving it to a base which might have been as heavy as 30 tons, and simply erecting it, simply putting it upright without the use of mortar. Understand that this is amazing. This is an architectural feat that we still don't entirely know.
There's a question about the one in Washington. What makes it different?
The one in Washington is not an original Tekken. It is one that was built by the Westerners, built by the early American engineers and architects. And while it is extremely large, it is also hollow. I know that there's a lot that you can think
And
about
white.
when I say that. And very light colored. Because it's carved out of a material that is different than the granite that the stone, the Tekken, is carved out of. So understand that you are seeing symbolically perhaps the large but empty nature of the United States. The powerful and gigantic but empty nature of the United States. And I'm sure that that is not what those people who created it intended to describe, but how could you not see that symbolically as you understand the nature of the United States and the role that it has played in the world?
And the orange bone that runs the...
Not going to talk about it today. Not here, at least. I have to say not here because Anika knows that I will go on rants about him in a quick second. So take a look at this other structure that is very popular, known on the left as the Eiffel Tower. The Eiffel Tower, in many ways, is another homage to the Tekken and the Mirkut, or the pyramid, the Mer. It is the joining of the two forms. And so I hope that you see that the Tekken has inspired the West more than perhaps any other structure. And in many ways, it is the way that we continue to see the concept of resurrection, the concept of creation. We also see Asar perhaps hidden in many other ways in the Christian and the Judaic tradition. You might note that there are those today that argue that perhaps the rising of Lazarus from the dead is supposed to be a hidden key by those who are reading those Christian texts that tells us that perhaps they are getting the concept of resurrection from Asar. There's at least one scholar or priest that used to argue that Lazarus was actually coming from the name Al-Osiris. And so maybe that is where they got Lazarus from. Remember, he is resurrected from the dead, and it is said that he is bound. And so perhaps this is the way that those who have ears to hear and eyes to see were supposed to understand the origin of the resurrection stories in the biblical narrative. When you go to old cemeteries today and you take a look across their expanses, you will see that they are virtually a forest of Tekkenu. You are going to see that there are so many Tekken in those places that they can barely be counted. Why? Because all of the concept of resurrection comes from ancient Africa. And in fact, you will note that, as I will argue that all of the concept of resurrection comes from ancient Africa or from Kemet, additionally, you should recognize that all of what I call mortuary culture comes from Kemet as well. The embalming of the body is one of the ways that individuals would have been mummified or sahuified, as I say. We see them buried in a tomb with a slab of stone that sometimes describes them. We see the stelae of ancient Kemet do something very similar outside of the tombs of individuals. And of course, we see the Tekken. We see all of those things be very, very familiar. And so understand that what you are seeing is the manner in which these symbols have gone into the modern traditions. Anyone recognize what building this is? Does anyone recognize what building this is? I know that you are able to see that there is a large Tekken on the outside of it. Can you tell whether that is a modern Tekken or is that something that actually comes from Kemet? I know that you also notice that there's a cross placed on the top of it, almost like it was coming out of the Henenen, that it was the emanation of the penis of Asar. Well, this building is actually the Vatican. This is the building that the Pope lives in. And when he opens his curtains every day, he looks out and sees the large erect phallus of a black African god. Just think about what that means. And think about the fact that they put a cross on the top. In many ways, what we are seeing is an argument that Christianity is the emanation of ancient Kemet. And let's go further. This symbol of Asar, if you look at it from this angle, you'll actually see that it sits at the middle of this grand square that is known as St. Peter's Square. Why does it sit there? What are the lines that come from it? Please understand that for quite some time, the learned priest of Christianity used this symbol of Asar as a way for them to judge the movements of the sun, as what is later called a gnomon. And so this symbol of Asar would allow them to tell what? Now, obviously, the symbol is connected to what? Resurrection, right? So what do you think? By the way, before I even go further, notice that I'm talking about the placement of the tekken upright, and we say that it is erected. The term erected certainly has its origin in the concept that we're talking about, the resurrection of Asar. And I want you to recognize that it should not be lost on you that resurrection is a reference to Asar more than any other deity. So when we say one is resurrected, this is an echo of the story of Asar. But as you look at this great member of resurrection being seated in the center of the Christian tradition, seated in the center of the most important place in the Christian tradition, the very home of the Pope, recognize that learned priests would use it as a gnomon to judge the movements of the sun and dictate when Easter would fall. And Easter is the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. This is almost in the open. I hope that you can recognize that what you are seeing is almost plainly placed in sight. And if this is something that confuses you, perhaps you need to reevaluate your understanding of the world and try to take the Tom who has taken control of your mind out of your mind. Because this is obvious that they are telling you exactly the role of Asar in the modern world and in one of the world's most popular traditions. So, after talking about Asar, how should you bring Asar into your life?
That's actually a question that came up. Being a masculine energy, how can women also invoke that energy?
I want you to understand that our Kemetic ancestors believed that these Neteru were indwelling entities. They were not just outside of us. And Asar is in all of us, whether we are male or female, just as Ast is in all of us, whether we are male or female. This is the way that energy in the Kemetic world would have been described. So, do not feel that if you are a woman that you cannot call on the power of Asar. And do not feel that if you are a man that you cannot call on the energy and the power of Ast. There were priests in the temple of Ast, not just priestesses, and there were priestesses in the temples consecrated to Asar, not just priests. Please understand that. It's very important. It's very, very important. I think that this becomes more difficult for us to understand today because the modern traditions have done so much to render divine femininity as something that either does not exist or that is secondary. And I know that you might say, well, how do they render it not existing? Find me a divine woman in the Christian tradition. The closest thing that you will find is Mary. But she's a human, right? Where is the divine entity in the Christian tradition? That is the question that you must ask yourself. And so, looking at all of this, you must ask yourself an even more fundamental question than the one I just asked. How do I invoke Asar within me? Well, there are several different ways that you can bring the power of Asar into your life. Certainly, I think that utilizing imagery of Asar is a great, powerful reminder so that we are able to perhaps tune to the channel that Asar is being played on. So that we are able to actually invoke Asar in a powerful way. So I like to have imagery of the Neteru around me because it is a reminder, and imagery is not unimportant. You ever see a commercial on television and realize that you're hungry? Recognize that imagery is powerful. Imagery is very, very powerful. And so we have to recognize that in order to really utilize this on a regular basis, we should have imagery as well. Now, keep in mind that you can even just draw your own image. How else can you do this? Perhaps you should create an Asar garden so that you can recognize that you are planting seed and seeing the growth. Maybe you should be doing your Asar altar. We do not have the time to do another Asar altar today, but we will do one. What are some things that you might put on your altar? Asar is connected to beer and to resurrection. Maybe you could even put some hops on your altar. Maybe you're going to put wonderful, rich, black dirt on your altar. Maybe you're going to put grasses that grow out of that dirt on your altar.
Pine cones.
Maybe you're going to put pine cones, another symbol that is connected to Asar on your altar. We always have pine cones here for that reason, by the way. Make sure that you are lighting green candles, lighting white candles, lighting black candles for Asar. There are many things that you can do that are connected to him, and hopefully you will continue to do those things as well. Maybe there are Asar Hessis that you can sing. The Shrine of Ma'at continually does an Asar Hessi that was authored by Anika and myself. We really enjoy it. The Asar, 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 Hessi. Make sure that you are going back to earlier sessions of Kemetic Ascension and doing that Hessi. It will allow you to invoke Asar. And just think of yourself as that being that cannot be destroyed by death. That you are absolutely infinite, that you are powerful, that you are worthy, that you can conquer all of those things that seem to take you out of your divinity. Recognize that the concept of Asar is one that we need today. Absolutely. As we are in sorrow over the continued murder of black men at the hands of authorities, think of the murder of Asar at the hand of one of the authorities, a Set. And think about the concept that our sisters are often crying for us, mourning for us. Recognize that the concept that those individuals who have been murdered have not been destroyed, that they are still with us, that they are Asar, is a powerful, powerful thing. We see the images of Ast mourning her husband, but we still see her in great splendor nurturing their offspring. So, be Asar, Anuk Asar, I am Asar, so that you are able to complete the most important work that you have before you.
There's one last question.
Yes.
What was the age of the world at the time of Kemet's creation?
What was the age of the world? Mm-hmm. I don't know if anyone can answer that question. I think that you have to recognize that the Kemetic tradition is one of the earliest traditions in the world. It is certainly one of the earliest written traditions in the world. And so for me to measure the world, which is billions of years old, when Kemet is in existence. Kemet is a nation, you recognize, right? That would be a difficult thing to do. And I'm not sure if it's necessarily the best way to utilize your energy. The concept of the creation of the world in the Kemetic mind worldview is something that's interesting. But Kemet itself comes into existence somewhere around 3200 BCE, if you count the unification of the two lands as its origin. The concepts therein are older than Kemet itself. And if you want to know that, please look at the device known as the Kustal incense burner. I'll let you do research on it so you can see that the concepts of those deities that we consider Kemetic actually predate Kemet itself. So with that, let me say the divine force in me greets the divine force in you. Please, Anika, can you come forward for our final affirmation?
Sure. So there are a few announcements that I'd like to make before we go into our last affirmation for the session. One, I know a lot of people are still asking when we'll be returning to Kemet. We're hoping to do it in 2021, but we still need to see what's going on in reference to the coronavirus. We want to make sure that people are safe when they go. and we don't want a bunch of people getting sick. So we will hopefully make that announcement by the beginning of the year, if not that very end of this year, to let you know what the dates will be and the cost for the trip. We're still waiting to hear back from Egypt Air in terms of the deposit we made this year for the trip and how it would be applied for next year, since we did not travel this year. So if you're interested, please sign up on shrineofma'at.org or centerforma'at.com and join our listserv, because that's how we're going to get the information out to people. Also, people who are interested in initiation, we just finished our initiation for 2020 in August, so our next initiation will be in early 2021. So again, when you sign up on shrineofma'at.org, we'll send out information letting you know when that initiation will begin, and it will also be posted on the website itself. So it's very important to join our listservs. That's how we communicate all of our information to you, to let you know what's going on. Some of you were asking about my Medu-Neter language classes. It starts tomorrow. I closed registration on Friday, but if you really are still interested, please do it today and sign up, and then I can send you the link to enter the classroom. So that you can do through centerforma'at.com, and that's how you can register for that class. But today is the last day that I'm going to accept any more registrations, because we have to be prepared tomorrow to actually go ahead and run the class. I need to have all your information in advance to do that. Jabari is teaching an African American history course. Some of you have been asking questions about that. Since he just finished teaching his Kemetic history course. So they're looking for specifically information about Africans who are here in the Americas and what their journeys have been. So if you're interested in that, his class is being taught Wednesdays at 7 p.m.
It starts on this Wednesday coming.
This Wednesday, so you have to register soon. That is also on centerforma'at.com. So you see, we have two websites.
And you'll also see it on jabariosase.com as well.
Yes. Okay. Again, those of you who were interested in purchasing sa or jewelry or meditation ankhs, please support Baba Heru by going to his website. It's www.soptah.com. That's soptah.com. Or you could just visit him at his shop. His address is on that website. But if you're going to visit him, please wear a mask. He is still healing, and he is in that risk category in terms of his age, so we don't want to bring any harm to him. So please wear a mask, but he is open, he is doing business. So please patron his business and help him continue to live this legacy and to bring this legacy forth for other people. And finally, if you'd like to donate to the Shrine of Ma'at, if you liked what you saw today, you want us to continue doing it, remember we don't get paid to do this. But we need the funds to be able to continue streaming and to purchase equipment and things of that nature. So if you'd like to make donations, please, you could do it through PayPal on our website at www.shrineofma'at.org/events. Or you could just do it through Cash App. And our handle is $Shrine of Ma'at. I know that's a lot of information. All of it is on our websites. So please visit those areas and let us know. Any questions, you can always go to our website and submit contact forms through there, and we would be able to respond to you that way. Okay. So, Tuau, 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 thank you for joining us today. Our final affirmation will be one of the oldest prayers known in history that came from Kemet, ancient Egypt. For those of you who are new to our platform, you notice we're back on both YouTube and Facebook today, so thank you to all of our YouTube subscribers who joined us today. We're going to do the affirmation in the ancient language known as the Untu or the Medu-Neter, and then repeat it in English. So please stand in the pose of adoration and repeat after me. Amasu in pa enter.
Amasu in pa enter.
Sauksu.
Sauksu.
Ementra.
Ementra.
Empa enter.
Empa enter.
Autu aura.
Autu aura.
Maketi pa herura.
Maketi pa herura.
Give yourself to the One Most High.
Give yourself to the One Most High.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
Keep yourself daily for the divine.
And do it tomorrow.
And do it tomorrow.
Just as you did it today.
Just as you did it today.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau Inter.
Tuau to all of you. Much mer to the family. Much mer to Baba Heru. Speedy recovery. I am sending Sekhmet energy to you and sending moot energy to you. I hope all is well, and we will see you soon. And take care for the rest of your afternoon.
Shalom Matap.
Shalom
Go forth
Matap.
in peace.